We are officially in the second split of the year, and there has been a massive meta swing with a ton of different changes. Lethal tempo is gone, mages are using double burn stacking builds, and Corki is now an assassin.
Bombs away!
League feels like an entirely different game than it was in the previous split, and please tell me, why is Skarner overpowered in 3 different roles while getting first picked in pro play? Which champs are slightly overrated, underrated, and are there any sleeper picks that you might not know about? Let's talk about it. This is Building Better. Today's video is sponsored by Opera GX, and this is a browser that I personally use every single day of my life. Once I made the switch to Opera, I never looked back, and there are so many reasons and things for why I love it over a lot of other browsers. All of these cool themes are incredible. My 2 favorite games of all time are League and Elden Ring, so it's nice that I can use these cool themes with these 2 styles. A mod pack that I tried out was the Cyber Deck. I think it's really cool. I love this futuristic look, and the sound effects are cool. Opening and closing tabs, the keyboard sounds, even the background music. The GX Cleaner is a very simple and effective tool to clean up browser cookies and cache files, and this allows you to save space on your PC and delete some temporary files very easily. And then there's the GX Control, which allows you to control how much of your PC is being used up by your browser. Do you remember back in the day struggling to be able to run anything because Chrome or Firefox was just killing your PC? Well, GX has the solution and the fix for you. This is a browser for gamers, with the Opera GX Corner being a great way to see all kinds of upcoming gaming news, releases, new sales, whatever it may be. That being said, gamers are not the only ones who can get extra accessibility from using this amazing browser. With the sidebar, you can get direct integration from some of your favorite apps like ChatGPT, Twitch, any social media you may have. Simply clicking one button and boom, you're right on the page. Opera GX is the perfect browser for anyone and everyone, and if you're not already using it, which you should, you can use my link in the description down below and start using it today. The structure of this video will be going through each champion by role, so you can check the timestamps in the description down below if you only want to learn about a certain role. That being said, what am I supposed to do about a champion that's good in 3 different ones? I did mention him in the intro, so let's just get this out of the way now. Skarner is beyond overpowered. He does everything well. He's ridiculously tanky, has amazing crowd control, he can jungle, he can top lane, and he is one of the best supports in the game. Did I also mention this champion does plenty of damage from semi-decent range as well? The rock throw actually does hurt, and for whatever reason, the AoE on the W is huge, and it ends up being a medium range poke ability in top lane. I don't want to sound so butthurt and get this video off to a bad start. I would love to say that he just needs some damage nerfs and it'll be fine, because that's exactly what he's going to receive along with some base health in order to lower some of his early potency. But I'd be lying if I said I'm satisfied. The problem is that the rework just doesn't feel good to play against. It's disorienting to get pushed around by his E. It feels like you can never escape due to all of the crowd control, the slows, and the E gives a lot of movement speed. It's true that his ult is no longer point and click, so you can dodge it and you can easily flash it if you're good, but he will happily trade that for being able to pull 3 targets. A good player will just use it as follow-up to other CC, and so I'm not really sure what can be done. I'm hoping that we can find out a solution, because overpowered in 3 roles, even for getting nerfed, still seems like he's going to be very strong. He's basically an immovable object in the top lane with the Fimbulwinter build because the item applies on everything so easily, and I've seen games where his damage mitigated charts are well over 100k. Anyway, on a happier note, let's talk about 2 happy-go-lucky mid lane mages, Lux and Zoe. These champs are performing quite well after the buffs to Ludens. Yozu started this season off with an incredible win rate on his Lux, and the build looks something like this. There's a few things that you could change and mix around based on preference, but First Strike is basically the go-to every time now. First Strike, even for getting nerfed on the next patch, is now the best rune in the game for poking. You're going to gain more gold just for proccing it regardless of all other damage, so it can create a very nice lane advantage. On top of that, triple tonic and cashback are great as they play into the gold generating build, which makes it so that your expensive mage items like death cap are much easier to attain. As a mage, you also have expensive item components like arm guard and inverted barrier, so these items will come online a little bit quicker in the mid game. Riot had a goal in mind to make mages stronger and more satisfying to play, and I do think that they achieved that. Hui, Zoe, Lux, Brand, all of these champions are awesome now. That being said, First Strike, like I said, will be getting a slight nerf on the next patch, and it should tone these champions down a little bit. But there is a clear divide in the mid lane meta between the mages who are good and the AD champions that got buffed massively with the crit and ADC changes. Some of the marksmen that are awesome in the mid lane are Tristana, Lucian, and Corki, but the one that is a cut above the rest is Akshan. Let me put it this way, Chovy bans Akshan, so need I say more about how strong he is? Kraken does a ton of damage for a first item even without having crit. The standard build for him is actually not involving crit, but rather on hit with Kraken, Rageblade, Bork, and Terminus, but you can build crit if you want. I've seen some Akshans even go Collector straight into IE. If you want to play this champion, it's up to you in deciding what item you'd like to go for, but I took the liberty of putting up the highest win rate per item slot. So you can decide which build is best. Since I'm not really sure, I don't really play this champion, but I have seen both types of builds work. Now, Akshan will be getting nerfed on the next patch, and it does seem quite substantial, so if this video ends up becoming outdated instantly and his win rate drops significantly, you could just substitute him for Tristana mid as the premier marksman in the mid lane. The next section of this video is just going to be about lethal tempo, or rather, the lack of it. You may think with the loss of this crucial rune, the champions that loved it best would struggle. Tryndamere, Jax, Yone, Yasuo. However, this could not be further from the truth. The Wind brothers really haven't had much of an issue without lethal tempo. You can build these guys any way you want. I've tried anything from Kraken and Bork first, which feel totally fine even without the crit, but I've also tried Phantom Dancer Rush, Infinity Edge Rush, even Shield Bow first item, and even some off-tank stuff with Iceborne. I don't think anybody has the exact build yet, and I think it's open for experimenting. Either way, both Press the Attack and Fleet Footwork are more than sufficient substitutes for a champion like Yasuo. The PTA damage feels very strong in the early game, and you can generate a lot of good solo kills. I think Yasuo, even more than Yone, is doing perfectly fine and maybe even got buffed on this patch with a lot of the changes, but Yone did definitely get a little bit weaker and he's receiving a small buff, but don't mistake that for him being weak overall. He still has a very broken kit and there's a lot of players being able to perform on him. Part of the reason why these champions are still doing well is due to the new rune Absorb Life. Since these are manaless champions with very good wave clear, it means that they can sustain through lane in the difficult matchups. It's very difficult to push out a Yone who has Fleet Footwork, D-Shield, Second Wind, and Absorb Life, giving him basically a free laning phase to scale no matter the matchup. Tryndamere may surprise you as a champion who is very strong, but he received a compensation buff to his passive, allowing him to get 50% crit for free. Tryndamere players have almost exclusively swapped their rune to using Grasp and going for items like Ravenous Hydra into Infinity Edge and Navori. Tryndamere has become the strongest melee solo laner in the game, and reasonably so, he will be getting a nerf. You should abuse it while you can, but I still expect him to be good. But after Tryndamere gets nerfed, I still believe the best top laner in the game will be Camille. She is good in almost any matchup and any game state. There's not one specific reason that makes Camille so good, but rather a combination of being all around solid. Laning isn't her strong suit, but she can still have some favorable matchups. She's not the single best side laner in the late game like Trundle or Fiora, but she can do well in sides. She's not the absolute best teamfighting top laner, but she is obviously not bad in teamfights because of her ult. And overall, she's just in a great spot right now where there's never really a bad time to pick Camille. Another bruiser that I like this patch is Jax. You would think that with the loss of lethal tempo, he would struggle to find a replacement, but he found it quite quickly. A lot of pro players are playing Grasp and Fleet in the top lane and doing completely fine. And not only is he doing well in top, but I gotta say Jax jungle is seriously a good pick, and I myself have had tons of success with him. I've played quite a few games of Jax jungle on my stream just trying it out, and as somebody who is not even really a Jax player, these scores are pretty decent. Imagine if he had a real weapon, and imagine if I even knew how to play Jax. The two premier ranged top laners in the game are Twisted Fate and Vayne, and when first picking a melee champion, it can be rather miserable to have to deal with these range matchups. Twisted Fate will be getting a nerf soon, but I still suspect him to dominate for one main reason. The interaction between Gold Card and Rapid Fire is so strong that it's going to be difficult to shove him out of the meta. The game has so much damage that all it takes is a single Gold Card, which is completely point and click, and everybody will one-shot that target. Twisted Fate thrives right now due to the insane power creep around him. The game has a faster time to kill than ever before, so the fact that he does decent damage on his own as well is simply a bonus. Another top laner that has a couple of different builds right now is Kennen. He's sort of come back as a flexible hybrid champion. He's good with the new First Strike buff going a normal AP build as you're able to farm it very well against melee champions, but you can even build AD Kennen again. He is not bad at all with Press the Attack, and I saw that the current rank 1 player on NA was testing out some Kennen builds. My top 5 highest performing junglers, excluding Skarner because I assume that you'll permaban him, are Kindred, Lilia, Bel'Veth, Kha'Zix, and Hecarim. Now before you get mad at me, there are other champions in the jungle right now who are awesome, like Rengar, Karthus, and Taliyah, just to name a few, but I don't think they're as good as the ones in my top 5 just because I think that they're more elite skewed and more one-trick skewed. Yes, it's true that Karthus is a press R champion who does a lot of damage, but if you don't know how to abuse his insanely fast jungle clear, then it's kind of pointless. That being said, any of these 10 junglers that I have listed as my top 10 are worth playing, worth practicing, and you should play them regardless. There's a Hecarim build that's been going around right now using an item that may surprise you, Zeke's Convergence. Eclipse, Black Cleaver, and Zeke's. Once he ults you, there is simply no escape. He's going to be faster than you and slowing you. It's crazy. This champ is so good right now partially due to the new rune as well, Legend Haste. The reason this is so good on Hecarim is that more than any other stat, all he truly cares about is CDR. Even in the most obvious Merc Treads games, I have still seen Hecarim mains opt into Lucidity Boot's first item. The champion just can't function without being able to spam his Q. It feels like it's his entire lifeline. Because the grubs are such a strong objective right now, and because Hecarim does them very quickly, each of the grubs that you take counts as killing an epic monster, so if you secure all 3 grubs right as they spawn, you will stack your Legend Haste insanely fast. Hecarim has high tempo and fast farming, making him perfect for the current jungle meta. Kha'Zix had received some buffs, and he's looking pretty good now, actually. He is the standout lethality assassin in the jungle, and even though his items aren't the strongest in the game at the moment, with crit and AP items taking over the meta, Kha'Zix doesn't seem to mind too much. There's a few different setups that you can use. Agarin has always been known to use something slightly off meta and a little different on Kha'Zix, and you can do what he does. You can also go for the more stock standard setup with First Strike or Dark Harvest with Blue Pet and go for full damage, or you can go Red Pet with Conqueror. You can even go full Bruiser with items like Black Cleaver. I've even seen some Green Pet and nearly full tank Kha'Zix do pretty okay. Honestly, just in the same way that the evolves are very flexible for this champion, so are his setups. It really just comes down to your playstyle and honestly the game state. Sometimes you can frontline, and other times you can get away with full assassin. Master Yi is the final champ that I want to talk about in jungle. He got a very big buff to become OP on this patch, but the next patch he's getting dropped down several notches with some sizable nerfs. He has a couple of different builds that you can use and will be viable at the moment, but any high-low presence that he's seeing right now will likely fall off a bit with these nerfs because it's honestly substantial. Alright, so AD carries. Where do I even start? It's not a secret that they got a lot stronger. Not only does Infinity Edge hit like a truck, but the crit chance is much more often as well now. Collector got a very nice buff, and anybody who can run this item early like Samira or Misfortune will really like it. The build path is fantastic as it has a BF sword, and there's another new champion that has been building it, Corki. Okay, Corki is an assassin. I never thought I would say that, but here we are.
Another huge one is Corki. People are doing
lethality, Corki, Hail of Blade.
lethality, Emax, Hail of Blade. Corki is so ridiculous.
So much damage, it's insane.
He just stat checks you. He Valks in on assassins and just kills them. That's just.
Dude, I was playing Rumble Jungle and I was like 6-0 with 2 items completed, and this Corki Valked on my face, and I was like, "What is this guy doing?" And I got instantly one shot.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I apologize. I was not familiar with your game." Like.
His early game damage is off the charts, and according to Freak, he is now the most skewed AD carry towards the early game in the game, even more than Kalista and Draven. He's doing quite well in mid and bot lane, and if you've played against Milio Corki on this patch, you probably uninstalled the game. If that lane gets the smallest lead, it's just over. Thankfully, he'll be nerfed accordingly, and I really do hope he stops killing me in 2 auto attacks with his E turned on. Another thing that Freak talked about in his patch rundown discussing some regional differences in the meta is how in the West, Caitlyn has been very popular and seen as extremely overpowered as the premier AD carry pick and is likely the reason that she got nerfed. However, apparently in China, it's not nearly as destructive. China seems to not think that Caitlyn is that strong at all, and they've been playing some other picks. Now, I don't know exactly where I stand. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. After getting nerfed, I think that Caitlyn is in the best spot that she's been in for a long time, but I also personally think there's a few better options that are good in almost every game state. An example of that would be Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa did not care in the slightest that Kraken lost its crit chance. In fact, you don't even really build crit on this champion. The common build now is Kraken into Rageblade, and she feels amazing. I also don't just want to talk about champions and items, but also summoner spell choice, as in the bot lane it is the most dynamic. After Ghost got nerfed and Barrier saw a buff, some of the more successful bot lanes that we're now seeing are running Barrier on the AD carry and Heal on the support, even in situations where you would think that Cleanse or Exhaust are necessary. This defensive combination seems to be powerful enough that you can live through most engages, and Assassins have a miserable time trying to kill the Draven with a Bloodthirster shield, Barrier shield, Milio's entire kit, and Milio's Summoner heal. How are you going to delete that guy? As a whole though, I do think Riot was successful on this patch opening up bot lane, and there's truly more diversity than before. I know that the patch is not perfect, and I know that I've complained about a lot of different things, but sometimes you have to give Riot credit here. I really do think there's a lot of strategies that are competitive in bot lane, and there's quite a few different champions that can work. First off, Ashe is the best AD carry in the game, and is getting nerfed, so we'll have to see where she lands after that. Corki may still dominate the early game even after some nerfs. Zeri is now very competitive with Static Shiv. As mentioned, champions like Kai'Sa, Jinx, Jhin, and Caitlyn all seem to be in a pretty good spot. Draven, if you can get him in Champion Select and he's not banned, is good with Bloodthirster Rush. First Strike is pretty good for poking champions like Lethality Varus, Sivir, and Misfortune. Ezreal's getting buffed in the next patch, and he might be very good with the Press the Attack build. And if all else fails, if you have the right duo, such as Rel or Leona for your support, Samira is the best snowballing AD carry in the game. I've also yet to mention how AP bot laners like Seraphine, Ziggs, Brand, and Karthus are very playable, and in a lot of cases are very good. There's still a few who need some love, like Xayah, who has generally been probably the worst AD carry in the game for quite a while now, but I think overall the bot lane meta is wide open, and it's pretty cool to see. And finally, similar to AD carries, there is a multitude of support strategies that are working right now. You do have your standard engage supports that you've always had, Blitzcrank, Naut, Thresh, and Braum, but due to the new burn items and the Zazax support items, mage supports like Zyra have now become top tier. The damage that Zyra puts out is the most that I've ever seen her do, and I do think you should spam the champion. Sona is still the best scaling enchanter in the game. If it ever goes past 30 minutes, Sona becomes your team's win con, as she's an amazing team fighter. But with that said, she's far from the only good enchanter. Nami recently got buffed and is amazing when paired with Lucian, obviously. Janna is good, but you'll need to make sure it's the right situation. You don't want to pick her into other enchanters like Soraka or Sona because you will get hard outscaled with the lack of a kill threat, but if you can pick it into something like Rel Alistar where you deny their engage and counter them really hard, then Janna can definitely work. The build that I've been liking on her is Slay with Echoes and Dawn Core. Now there's nothing wrong with Dreammaker and Moonstone, but I'm seeing a bit more success with some of the other stuff. Honestly, Janna can build a few different things, so don't be afraid to test stuff. The reason that I personally recommend the other build though is that after the buff that it received, I've seen Dawn Core doing very well, and a few of the good Jannas that I've run into were building it, and the win rate seems to back that up. And Lux has been drawing a lot of bans in mid lane and support for a good reason. Lux might be in the best state that she's ever been, and I've never seen this champ do so much damage. Now, partly because of Mickey X performing so well on it at MSI and G2 being a popular team, I think that Poppy's support is gaining more and more traction by the day. She has a small but dedicated player base that uses her very effectively in high elo, as she supports the highest win rate in the game in Master Plus. But like I said, it is a low sample size. And it wouldn't feel right to me if I didn't include at least one sleeper pick at the moment. I mentioned that mages are in a great spot right now, but if you want to know who I think is the most underrated mage support, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I seriously believe LeBlanc's best role right now is in the bot lane as a support. LeBlanc is plenty strong in mid lane right now anyway, as we've seen pro mids picking her back up and practicing her again like Caps and VTO, but wow, is she oppressive in support. She does everything well for support. She has good CC setup with the chain, she has good poke, she can roam and dive with her mobility, and the game around her is allowing mage supports to thrive at the moment. There's never been a better time to try to play for kill lane or selfish supports. And lastly, you know what? Yuumi is getting buffed in the next patch, and I hate to be that guy, but yes, it is deserved. Okay, look, Yuumi is the weakest champ in the game, and it has been for quite a while now, and next patch, she should be a little bit more playable. I know that she's the most controversial champion they've ever made, so fair enough, your opinion on Yuumi is probably not going to change, but look, for anybody who likes Yuumi, she should be a little bit better next patch, and yeah, she's been pretty bad for a while. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Building Better. Make sure you check out my Twitch stream and my YouTube stream if you want to catch me live. I'd really appreciate it if you stop by, and you can ask me any question you want. You can also come in, get some cool advice and tips, and you can talk about these videos and stuff like that. I'll be going live shortly after this video comes out. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.